Hello. I'd like to call to order the May, oh, nope, that is June. It does. Yep, I missed that. I'd like to call to order the June Ramsey-Washington Metro Watershed District Board meeting. First order of business, just to call out, if you want something changed out of the agenda, now is the time to talk about it. First order of business, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Wonderful. Okay, just double checking. Good. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All abstaining. Item number 3, consent agenda. Remember, all these items are to be approved with one motion. We do have time for discussion. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I'll open it up for discussions, questions, so help us. Take time to your notes, because that's what I am doing.
No questions, just a note on E. It just says October 2025, and that's 2026.
I'm sorry, which one was that?
E, Coleman Lake Alum Treatment Project.
Thank you. Have some date issues, I guess. Thank you.
We will let the water fest be your excuse.
Thank you.
Makes sense. I just had one question on the Heights apartment piece. There, find the comments. Technologically challenged, I apologize. Oh yeah, so I was just looking at the special provisions. There's a lot in bullet 4 for 2617. I assume you guys are managing that and looking forward.
Yeah, often. So we usually ask for like cross sections, plan views, and then details. And so sometimes we don't have all of those, or they give like a manufacturer's general detail, and you want to know site specific. Where is each manhole? Like, where are we looking? Where are we inspecting?
Given your y'all's work with the group, you aren't concerned today?
No. No, just requests for more information, more site specific information that will help us in the future.
Okay. Any other questions for the consent agenda? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed say nay. All abstain say abstain. The consent agenda passes. I believe you're here with Bailey West.
Thanks, Fred.
Moving on to item number 4, visitor comments.
We have any visitors here today?
Wonderful. There's going to be 2 opportunities to talk if you are a visitor. Moving to item 5, regulatory program.
Yeah. Let me know if you have any questions on the monthly memorandum. Joined a new technical advisory committee for another regional trail planning project in Washington County. We had wrapped up that Creek to Croy long range planning process, and they're kicking off another one. So me and Pat from Natural Resources are just participating in those meetings, sharing engagement opportunities as they come up. But if there's anything specific that this board would ever like us to communicate to the county, right now they just have a very general area identified to essentially study. So no proposed alignment, but just wanted to provide that information. And then had a couple full days. Kendra and Mary and Cooper met with school district staff. They've had a number of permit projects with us, and they're getting these reports from us, inspecting their infrastructure. And I think they finally were just like, can we just, let's hit these all at once. Can you walk these and explain these? So they're having some issues with maintenance and staying on top of the best management practices, and not having someone with necessarily the expertise to maintain some of these systems. So looking at exploring a pilot partnership with the district for maintenance.
Are you guys forming, I had questions on that, are you guys forming a pilot right now, or is there a pilot underway, or just? Because I guess the way I read it, the summary is, it's obviously a money thing, but it's also a personnel thing. And so even if we did give them dollars, they would have to find somebody to assist with.
All right. So like tying into our maintenance contract?
The school district.
Yes. Oh, yes. I thought we were still on the other one.
Oh,
I didn't know about this. Yes, school district. Yes. So we have offered to them for a couple years where they could jump onto this maintenance contract. And so they will tie into, we have was one contractor is already going out to Justice Allen Page Elementary, and then we'll tie another contractor in for the other two schools. Kind of fits their budget needs this year, and then we'll look to include probably a couple more next year.
So in this pilot, we are sourcing or tying into the maintenance program and sourcing the dollars.
So we will fund, we said 50% of the maintenance costs. Yep. So the school's kicking in. I think their budget is $2,500 per school.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think pilot, just because it's kind of our first permitting site that we've helped with maintenance, but it's a school district. We thought it was a good opportunity.
And this maintenance is contractual agreements with Rogers and Rain Gardens. For the more BMPs, these schools have.
If they have more, I know. I think all of these are for Rain Gardens. They were looking at some underground systems, but I think none of those needed maintenance this year.
Okay.
But yes, at this point, it's just for infiltration basins.
As you look long term, what do you foresee it turning into? Do you think like a stewardship grant part, just a typical wrap into the maintenance part? Like,
I think eventually that would be nice. Right now, they need a little more maintenance than what our maintenance grant covers, so we thought we would tie it into this. But hopefully, once they get everything kind of, maybe a couple years of intense maintenance, and then they could apply for the maintenance grant. Unless I think it's Mary, that opportunity where for them to coordinate maintenance might be tough. So if we can keep it under our contract, it probably could continue there. So
I was just gonna say, I foresee the pilot program being targeted to public non-MS4 sites. So people that are public, but they are not beholden to their own MS4 requirements. So that's kind of where schools fall into this weird gap where they're a public project, but they don't have their own requirements like cities and counties do.
Do you see this as kind of an ongoing, like permanent, ongoing? I think it has that potential. We're gonna have to see where it goes. It's nice that they're jumping on this and they're budgeting for it. I think it'll make it to that point where if they're okay with hiring their own contractor, they could go that route. But since we have contractors every year, it's seems to be a good opportunity.
Yeah, they have grounds staff that are comfortable with some more general practices like mowing, tree removal, but some of the basins are kind of need a lot of help right now, and some of them are more technical than others. So I think they're definitely interested in learning more, that they can take over some of the long-term maintenance once they kind of get in better shape. So we're kind of hoping they take some stewardship in that too.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where it goes. I think you should definitely take the questions as more. I'd like to see how we can help them more. This is great. Other questions for the regulatory program? Awesome, thank you, Nicole.
I should mention
Yeah,
for visitors, we do have Michael Miller.
Oh,
If
yeah.
you're not, I don't know, Michael, if you were here to speak for public comment?
All right, let's move forward. Stewardship grant program.
Yeah, we've had a few staff approvals and then a few on the consent agenda. Otherwise, nothing super notable right now. The Actually, I will mention that one of the community partner grant recipients, the Blue Thumb Land Care, Sustainable Land Care Training Program, they're hosting a kickoff and fundraising event on June 13th. And they've invited staff and anyone else who might be interested in attending that. They'll have speakers that can speak to what the program's going to look like, and they're trying to raise some money as well. So I think they've got some different events and fun things planned for the day. So I can send that information out or have Tina send that out to you guys.
Thank you.
I will note, I am very aware of the zeros on the shoreline restorations for both categories. We've been chatting internally how we might kind of start reaching out and what that looks like, and then revisiting potentially some of our the larger scale targeted retrofits for additional phases. So
Have we done that on like Wabasso? Because we have a project going on with that. Like now.
We haven't done targeted outreach to Wabasso. It kind of, we were talking about, so we did Twin, Snail, and 2 phases of Owasso. And Owasso we had split into 4 phases, and I kind of paused. So that's where we might pick up. Obviously opened up as we go through the shoreline assessments and see things, but I know people on that lake were interested because they reached out when we were doing phase 1 and 2.
yeah.
Some have proceeded with their
I
own
was like,
grants.
yeah, and we've had several reach out, and we've gone to full construction for them, and they haven't followed through on actually doing the projects. So there's a handful that we're already aware of that we'll probably reach back out to this year and just kind of see where they're at. And then yeah, with the shoreline assessments, we'd have a lot better idea too. But for now, it'll be kind of general targeting.
Okay. Any other questions for Ashley?
Some of the other categories seem like they're doing pretty well. They haven't had restoration and number of projects. So there's interest out there. People know the word.
Yep.
Have money.
Yep. And I've already been informed. Haven't touched base with the new designer at Washington Conservation District yet. I believe she just got on board a couple weeks ago. But the Ramsey County is got quite the long queue for design. So I felt like there was maybe a little bit of a lull, and I checked in and he's like, no, there's not been a lull. So he's like, I'm like, okay. So there's quite a few in the queue to get actually fully designed, and there's a lot of folks who got designs last year that are now reaching or like concept plans that are reaching out for full design this year. So the queue is still pretty big.
And the new designer at Washington Conservation District is Ashley, same last name, Patel, our former intern. I think you met her work at Schleggy Wetland, and she came and gave a presentation. So it's cool to work with her again.
In Manila,
Yes, exactly.
Just
Yeah.
commute issue, so
Yeah.
great to hear that it's maybe working out a little bit closer.
Very cool. Go ahead, check something. Any other questions for Ashley? All right, we're gonna move to item 7A, MS4 stormwater.
I think I'll have Nicole just kick this off for us.
Yeah, so every year, as part of our MS4 permit, the MPCA requires us to notice our minimum control measure activities, or our SWIP. And so, you know, in years past, you would have seen like a specific report with specific questions that every MS4 had to fill out. That hasn't been available. So we have the approved SWIP form, SWIP permit in the board packet. But then, you know, hearing last year, it's like, well, this is the same every year for the last 4 years now. So I just try to kind of make my own summary and just have it hopefully be a little bit more meaningful and reflective of 2025. So certainly not every question that would probably be in a PCA annual report, but just wanted to highlight things of interest and by no means everything we did, but I can certainly take questions too.
Just to clarify, so the PCA is not currently asking for things.
Right.
They're kind of on a
Yeah.
whole process as far as a new direction, maybe.
Yeah.
And so you are updating this so that for our purposes.
Yeah, that's a good point. We are still required to do all of the items, which includes this annual opportunity for public comment. And we'll have to report back on that once we do have a new reporting form. So, in some ways it's, just wanting to make sure we meet the requirement, but, hopefully the memo is of more interest, I guess, for this past year's activities, but.
So once that new reporting form and new permit is issued, they're gonna ask us to look back over these last 5 years, so they haven't had one, and report on that information. So we're still collecting all the data and all the information that they requested. And this is for your information, the 2025 data that we'll include in that report.
I do appreciate that you've already separated it out in the document library as well, so that's quite nice.
A comment, and I think I may have commented on this previously, but there are a number of the questions in the form that have names and titles that probably should be updated at some point, before it would be submitted. I don't know if, because you would have that.
That's because that's our latest permit that's been issued to us, that we submitted our form is from 2020.
Holding out.
So there is no other document for us to fill out at this point. So we're still under that same permit from 2020. So that form with all that data and that information in it is outdated.
Yeah.
And we recognize that and they recognize that. But the information we're collecting that Nicole summarized for you is what we update every year, that we've been collecting and preparing for the big request.
Okay, yeah, I just understood that it wasn't being submitted, but if for whatever reason it gets outside of our kind of circles, and the public has a public posting for the board packet, it seems like, gee, shouldn't we update those things? But I understand the concept of the current permit is,
So that's what was submitted in
That's the
2021 or 2020, that was approved by PCA, so it's like.
We haven't
That's
had
what we're
it
operating on.
since then. To fill out, so.
Yep, thank you.
I do appreciate the numbers. I do. Any questions on the numbers before I open it up for public comment and invite others to comment during this period of time? That is something that we still have to do. Why don't we take a couple moments and pause and open it up for anyone online who'd like to make a public comment about the MS4 stormwater pollution prevention plan. SWIP. Data. Okay, perfect. So this is effectively for information. There's no action currently, and it's already posted on the site. Are we satisfied with 7A? I'm going to drive us to 7B because there's some really good discussion in 10 to be had.
Right, so 7B is an update from last month after the discussion you all had regarding our district office exterior improvements. Definitely heard that there were some, more information asked for, and so I'm hopeful that you found that what we've updated in the memo and on the cover sheet is helpful. I guess we're here to answer any further questions or take any comments on that, unless there is anything else you want to add.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I took my note, not to take over the conversation on this, but I really think, and I appreciate you coming back with more information. I found it fairly comprehensive. When you look at the ones that we've approved previously, we didn't truly have the authority to enforce a lot of the same data measures that you're proposed here. So I see this being a very valuable exercise to understand where it's at. It is definitely an increase in cost, and I think what happened last week is it kind of caught some of us by surprise. But I like the thought process behind it and this transparency. The one thing I do want to cite that didn't jump out at me is, let's say after a year of use, we actually find that it doesn't work, or so do we have the capability of turning it off without impacting the rest of the permeable pavers and any of that?
Yeah, you don't need to use the heated section. I think one of the things I wanted to note in here and in the memo was that, there's a research component, but there's also this is a staff and public use. We don't use salt now, we plow after a certain amount of snow. So this really will be a benefit to staff use too, and the public. And anyone when you come here. But yes, if there's for whatever reason we find that it's not effective or we don't want to use it, we can.
Or if we see the metrics like on the return on investment that we're still plowing because of X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
That's what I'm curious about. And I assume we'll cross that bridge as we go, given the metrics you're collecting.
Right.
So I'll pause there. I know other people had comments last time, but that's what I was thinking.
I have a couple of things. I also, as Val indicated, I really appreciate the additional detail. I think it's very helpful. The fact that we would be doing this for ourselves, and ask other projects to provide some monitoring and related kind of accountability. For the set of gold standards that were, so I was really pleased to see some of the additional points in terms of monitoring parameters and approaches. One thing that I would suggest we consider that I didn't see is kind of the human element, in a sense, have a user perception of something that I think it's been used in some of the aquatic recreation, water quality kinds of. The idea of using, I'm on page 99, the visual documentation of pavement conditions during and after storm events using time-lapse imagery, I think great. But I'm not sure the degree that time-lapse imagery can fully interpret what somebody walking across the parking lot or the sidewalk might be able to, hey, working pretty great, or not what exactly expected. Well, just a user perceptive type of approach, and I wouldn't say we have to do that on a whatever frequency, but add that into the bullets for a monitoring approach. The human element. Another question, but don't have anything.
I have
A couple,
two.
but I'll wait.
So thanks for the additional information. I'm going to pose two additional questions that come separate from the bid, but something that I'll ask for when the bid comes back. We are adding with the heated pavement, obviously there is an ongoing maintenance cost for heating of the boiler. So I would like to have an indication of what that estimated cost is. And the maintenance requirement for the system. And so I did note that in 2024 at the SALT Symposium that this was a topic. And so I would appreciate it if staff did reach out to, say, Plymouth to get a check from them as to, down and dirty, what worked, what didn't work, what were your concerns, Just so we have a little bit more knowledge going into this venture.
Yeah, thank you. I think we might have, Marcy, are you on? I think we might have gotten an estimate for ongoing maintenance, but yeah, we'll definitely keep track of that as we.
I am here. I'll have to dig that up. I can certainly provide that. I'm not sure if I'll be able to find it while we're still chatting about it, but I'll take a peek.
I'm not looking for it now. I think it comes into the overall
Yeah.
picture because it's not just the maintenance, but it's also the heating. We're a
Yeah,
little sensitive
absolutely.
right now to fuel costs.
Yeah.
So
Sure. Yes, we can certainly provide that.
You said two questions. One was the heating.
the heating,
power,
annual
and
heating expense, and then the maintenance costs. I understand that there is a maintenance, a little
Yeah.
bit of an art to making this go. So just would like staff to know what some of the potential hitches might be.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Overall, I really appreciated the extra information provided this time. One comment question that came to me is you've given us this table of estimated costs, different alternatives, but they're not truly alternatives because aren't we just, the bid, as I was going through the details anyways, seems like we were just getting a bid for the entire lot being a heated pavement.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah, the alternatives were what were given last July when we were deciding if we wanted to continue going down the paved drain and
Yeah.
heat it. Yeah. So they're not bid alternatives.
Yes, so are you getting a line item for the heated portion so that we can truly track all those cost benefits that you've gotten?
Yes, I think that's correct, right, Marcy? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we would have it as a bid item. Right now, the mechanical system is set up as a lump sum, but the pavers are separate. So we're working through the final details of that measurement and payment. So if there's a specific request of, things that you'd like to be able to pull out from a total or have it as a separate bid item, we can certainly consider that as we're finalizing the details here.
I guess it would be helpful in my mind to know what the true like heating element would be like under the pavers. So maybe that's included in the, I'm not sure the first item you
Just the heated elements.
just to pull that out, because I mean, you're talking in your estimated costs when you laid it out,
Right.
it's a difference between 40 to 65,000 in the engineering cost. And I know we've seen those come in higher. It'd just be good to know so that when we are tracking all those cost benefits, you can truly, because in my mind, this is a showpiece. You can hopefully get someone else that wants to do this, and you can say, going from just your permeable paver to your heated element paver is approximately X amount of dollars per square foot. And, we've been tracking it for however many years. And that translates to a payback in 10 years or whatever that number is. I'm not sure, and it will take a time to get to that, but that's really good data if you are trying to get a large scale installation or even a residential scale.
Right. That's good. Yep.
So that was all I had. Otherwise, really appreciated the extra information. Thank you.
A question, I guess. There's a lot of information provided in the specifications and monitoring some of the budget, but just fundamentally, how does it work in terms of how does the heat get triggered and turned off? I mean, there are thermistors in the system. Is it all automated? Is there some manual functionality? How does this, just work?
Good questions. I think I will turn that to Marcy because he can talk through it more eloquently than I can.
Yes, so we're still trying to decide exactly how to set up the bid items, as I mentioned. One of the things that we've been mulling over is including a more basic system as the base bid, and then doing an alternate for a more automated control system. And so then we could really see what that cost delta was between those two options. Because there's one, there's an option where you can basically like flip on a switch and say, I want it to turn on, but then that requires staff to be there. So the one that we've been chatting about the most and I think has the most opportunities to track data over time is one that's tied to temperature and moisture sensors that would be placed in the pavement itself. And so it would sense when it's cold and it's getting wet. And so then it would turn the system on. There are advanced systems that look at weather forecasting and things like that. And so we're we're contemplating those options to be able to bring that back and have staff and the board choose which route we take. If it's $100,000 change, let's say for, wild numbers, if it was $100,000 delta between the base and the, fancy version, then you could choose if that was really the route that you wanted to take for installation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's helpful.
Okay.
Because it does seem, yeah, obviously how you could flip the switch or you could have this automated to, be like a smart, do it off your phones or whatever, or it could be automated. I was thinking all those options might be at play, but there really wasn't any information which of them were really kind of being proposed. And at this point, it sounds like there isn't any, but knowing those options exist is very helpful. And that's probably another conversation a little further down the road. Thank you.
Mhm.
Guess for me, I guess it's very helpful to see all this kind of more like detail of it for a better understanding. And yeah, and I kind of like question that I had definitely considered was just like servicing and maintaining it with time and the cost that could kind of play in, and how durable it kind of holds up over time too. But yeah, I guess that's kind of weird.
Feels good. We're ready to action. Do I have a motion to approve the preliminary designs, estimated costs, proposed project schedule, and direct staff to finalize the design and bidding documents and advertise the project for bid?
So moved.
Second.
Wonderful. Any further questions or discussions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. All abstain say abstain. Okay, action item passes. Moving forward to the attorney report. Seriously, she already jumped offline there.
Good evening, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. I don't have much to report. Our office just engaged in regular contract review. Let me know if you have any questions for me. Thank you.
I do not. Any questions? Thank you, Tori. Short and sweet.
Short and sweet.
Okay, moving on to item 9, board discussion topics. Any topics to discuss? I did want to spend a couple of moments to say, Waterfest was really well done. I know we relocated the location, but you couldn't feel it, quite frankly. I had some kids in tow, and they absolutely loved it, and I enjoyed it as well as we were going through. It seems like there's some new vendors. I was really happy to see that there's no bouncy house. I know there's probably kids that are they're quite happy about that. This seems like a nightmare.
Yeah.
But the fishing tournament, was that new? No, it's been there. I just haven't gone down at the waterway. Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, good.
So thank you very much. It's a lot of effort. And I saw later on, and I'll just compliment on the water week as well as that's going through planning. It's just a lot of effort, but I think it's reaching people, and that's really cool.
Yeah, we had a really nice day. The weather was great. Yeah, just everything seemed to go really smoothly, and we ended up we were able to use the pavilion one last time before they shut it down in June now. And so we'll have a new pavilion next year, but we did expand down to the beach, and I'm not sure that there was a lot of activity down there.
No, I felt kind of bad. There was a big contingent of teenagers at that one location.
Yeah. So we'll evaluate if it's even, we did that because we didn't think we'd be able to be at the pavilion.
Yeah.
So we thought we'd shift everything south, but then when we were able to use the pavilion, we kept it, but it was hard to have enough connection. It's a long stretch, yeah. So.
And it looked like there was a public library even further down there too, a little place that had right in front of it was a watershed sign. It's like, oh, that was an interesting activity.
Yeah.
It's a good job.
Yes, thank you. We want to mention it here or in the admin report, but there was the email that you got from Jan from Minnesota Watersheds about the resolutions that were submitted.
Oh, yes.
If you have a chance to review those and you want to just email me any comments in that 10-day period, that's just the initial kind of response to what you're seeing. And then those will go to the legislative committee for Minnesota Watersheds, and then you'll have a chance either at the July or maybe even probably the August meeting. We can bring them as a item for discussion.
I can't remember when the due date was for that. Do you recall?
Like June 12th, I think. Yeah, for that initial.
For the initial 10 days.
And that was just, email me any comments you have, I'll put them together and send to Jan. And then, yeah, the meeting for the approval of the resolutions down the line is August 31st. So we'll have time at our August meeting to discuss once they're finalized and going for vote.
Thank you for their magic. It's a good call.
Yeah, I saw the message. I had a chance to open it or do anything with it.
I think there were seven or eight, 4 or 5 of them are from Cornelia Marine about shoreline restoration work. So there's some really good stuff in there. And I think originally they had sent one big one, and Jan asked them to split it up into different categories. So you'll see that. And then there's one around a pretty hot topic right now, which is the plumbing board's restrictions, potential rule restrictions on reuse projects, basically not allowing reuse projects to move forward. And so that's asking for legislative changes or either legislative changes or requiring the plumbing board to really have conversations with us about what their intent is on so.
Okay, so 2 really near and dear things.
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, June 12th to Tina.
Yeah. Totally different topic. Referencing kind of on the board action log, there's a watershed data strategies topic queued up for board discussion and presentation. And I was just wondering, it seems like we have such strong opinions about data, whether or not it might be really useful to kind of maybe split those up into either a small group providing feedback on data, how we might envision using that data rather than having it all together in terms of a presentation with a feedback at that time.
Okay.
So just
to
that.
remind myself on, because we are in a project right now too with BAR for the data visualization work. So I'm not sure if that was supposed to be the culmination of that.
I have no idea.
I'll have to look back.
It was just a data topic.
It came up a couple of times. We're sitting on a hot bit of data. I know this is the first project, but there are some other things that we had chatted about around that we thought could fit into the plan, I think. Yeah, I'd have to go back to look at my notes. It's not popping in my head. What I understood the BAR project to be is the right step in the direction of a longer term strategy that we probably should talk about.
Yeah, the work that BAR is doing is pretty specific to our monitoring, water quality monitoring.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a good call. Yeah, we are very opinionated when it comes to this.
That's a good comment. I'll take a look at
It
that.
is important.
Yeah, no, I agree. I can't go a day at work without talking about it. Wonderful, good topics. I'm going to press this to 10A. In preparation for this, and I've asked Tina to maybe say it better than what I'm going to lay out. This is really just to inform and educate around the buffers. We've talked about them a few times. I don't know if you experienced what I did, but I found myself going to multiple different reports and trying to digest as much as possible. So you normally with new reports and presentations, they're definitely for discussion. Sometimes I've encouraged people to hold off on educational questions. This is not that time. So you should ask questions. It's to just inform and educate us on buffers. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think, we wanted to, like Belle mentioned, we've talked about buffers all the time. It comes up a lot. We talk about them through our regulatory program, through wetland restoration work, through our own project implementation. And, recognizing that we have, almost 50 years or 40 years of history around buffer and wetland management. It was helpful for staff and then hopefully helpful for you to kind of take a deep dive into how we got here and kind of the path we took. And, things like how we have a policy around no net loss wetlands, to see that we did that in 1990, ahead of the WACA rules being in place, but how that's kind of been a mainstay of the watershed for all these years is, just kind of reminding ourselves about where we've been and how we got here. So wanted to lay out that history for you. And then, looking at, we thought it was important to share, thinking about what urban wetland buffers are, what they could be, what they oftentimes are, how we look at that when we're looking at permitting or at our own project implementation. We provided some example photos just to, I think we all want to think about, a pristine 75-foot average buffer. But oftentimes when we see them come through in our regulatory program, that's not how they look in reality. And so thinking about how we regulate that, with that in mind, and then what it could, thinking about what that could be, what it could look like, and could we make it better? Can we make those wetland buffers better through that program as well? So, but understanding that sometimes impact to the buffer might not always be a negative, right? That it could, in the end, provide a net positive. So, like Val said, we wanted just to kind of inform and educate a little bit about how we got there. We talk about the MinRAM assessment and then moving into what the new assessment methodology is looking like, and how we're, looking to the future of doing our assessments for wetlands. And then we've talked a little bit about the potential for regulatory changes around temporary impacts to our buffers, buffer widths potentially, and kind of how that's the separate rule revision process that's coming as well. So it was a lot, but I am happy to answer any questions, or if there's a certain way that you'd like to, or section of this report that you'd like to focus on, I'm happy to do that.
Well, I really appreciate this memo. I think you should earmark it and keep it as kind of a reference for future newbies that me who come on board.
Yeah.
It's really good. And I am going to say, so first comment has to do with data. I mean, there was obviously there's a history of doing a lot of categorization, right? Back in 2003, 2004, over 750. So, I mean, that instantly begs the question, so what did they look like?
Yeah.
A simple table at that time, even in the categorization, would have been really helpful to track over time. What did it look like?
Yeah.
Not necessarily, I know they're not necessarily the same ones that we would track over time, but it's just kind of a good quantification. Like, do we have all managed to, or that sort of thing, just
for information,
just informational. Just as, that helps kind of kind of ground in terms of what are the quality of the wetlands that you guys are looking at all the time. And then my second comment is just a question. It looks like there are new requirements coming downstream. So the question is, maybe it's just to think about, but what challenges do you think at this point in time that implementing this new assessment method will present to the district? I mean, is our database going to be a limitation? Do we have issues with how the categorization is going to be defined, or people resources?
Yeah.
Do we have to go back out? So just those general questions.
I mean, I think we'll definitely, last time we had a full-time staff member, Julie, that did like 100% of her job for like 5 months was, assessing wetlands. We probably will lean a little more on BAR and, other professional assessment help with that. I think one of the opportunities is we do have all that data from the assessment in the early 2000s and the one before that. And so we can watch and see how it's progressing. The challenge will be to find a way to take the data from this new assessment, because it's not as categorical, right? It doesn't automatically provide assessment quality categories. So that's something we're going to have to develop to kind of find a way to put them into some sort of category. And then so that we can compare it over time. I also think that it will be this new assessment tool will be helpful to track maybe reference wetlands, finding wetlands throughout the district that we can focus on and do more regular reassessments to see change over time as well. But I think, people resources will probably be people and money to do that work.
Yeah, I guess I just wanted to say, whoever wrote this, somebody or somebody, probably, yeah, at BAR and as well as staff at the district, did a really good job. I think that it was very comprehensive. It brought back memories for me in a number of ways.
Yeah, me too.
Most of them good. But I would say that it was very, fairly accurate. And so as a summary of buffers and wetland classification, wetland management classification, it did a really effective job. So good job, thank you. And I think that it really, we're in an ideal place, is what I think. We have a very comprehensive set of data. We understand our wetlands historically. Minram itself had a lot of shortcomings. The new methodology is, I think, has some parallels, but very different in other ways. One thing that I would encourage us to maybe keep track of, this is sort of a personal, professional perspective. We often get wrapped up in terms of thinking about this new assessment method, wrapped up in the idea of functions. And functions give us the answer to what that wetland is or what it should be. And functions are, and oftentimes functions and values become a human-derived value. Do you value that wetland more for its water quality benefit, or for its habitat benefit, or for flood storage, and it's entirely a human construct. Entirely. We do not do the same thing with lakes. We do not do the same thing with streams. Apply values with functions. So I would bring and the word period one time, that concept of the condition of the wetland. Forward, something we might want to just put into the conversation. And the condition is just very simply, what's its integrity? What is condition? And condition and function are not. So we'll have more conversations. I just wanted to kind of put that out there.
It's a really interesting comment. I had not thought about it that way. I have some just general questions as it relates to, like, I went through Bowser and a couple of other things. As you look at like the Minnesota buffer law, was that written so generally to cover all kinds of buffers? Because it didn't, like, I read through it and you know, the whole kind of point with urbanization versus rural buffers. Could you speak to how that Minnesota buffer law and some of those requirements fit into this?
Yeah, so the Minnesota buffer law is not applied in the metro area. So it is intended more for the non-metro.
Okay.
Metro area. Yeah.
And also principle. But it has a strong asserting around streams.
Yeah.
It applies
yeah.
to lakes as
And
well.
drains.
Yeah, and larger deeper wetlands as well. Yeah, it just.
Yeah, it's such a unique thing being in an urban area. What I was left leading towards, actually, your word of functions, what I was thinking is, are there ways that we should be considering? What sold me is they have a huge benefit for water quality buffers too. And as you think about what we're trying to prioritize, be it the condition of the wetland or just the water quality or whatever we talk through, are we approaching buffers appropriately, just saying, hey, keep out of this area, versus these are some things that could improve water quality within that space that we should consider?
I think, and I was mentioning this to Val earlier too, one of the things that I didn't really get into this memo maybe as clearly as I should have, but when we look at buffers for water quality, we also require through our rules that all water be pre-treated before it goes to a wetland. So oftentimes we're not sheet flowing through a buffer. It's being treated and then piped into a wetland, right? So the buffer width has more benefit for water quality when you have some sheet flow. And then the bigger benefit is, you know, natural spaces, habitat restoration, wildlife habitat as well. And then, you know, we talked about one of the rule requirements that we've seen, we recently saw for the heights was, you know, no stormwater BMPs in the buffer, because we didn't want, you know, developers to just push everything into the buffer area. We wanted to keep natural buffer when we can, but there is opportunities, like you said, maybe to provide treatment in some cases, or to improve on a buffer system when the buffer isn't of quality.
I think what was wonderful about the memo is it just shows the striking challenge we have in the urban area. And so it just has led me down conclusions of prior questioning of these impacts to want to reform those questions and, like, okay, how do we maximize those particular for the health of that wetland? It's changing it was good write-up because it changed my perspective on a bunch of things. Going to the, let's see, I'll pause. I need to read my comments again. It's a word a day.
Earlier, place and I mean preempt, but the fact that regulatory programs staff and management are working with Cap Region on rules. That was part of what I was thinking about being the timing right place. So I won't ask where the kind of rules conversation is, but
The way they're laughing makes me want to ask. Yeah.
But I would just throw out the concept of conditional well. Think along the lines of condition of a buffer too, and can we build around that concept? You know, we've got a amend one issue or whatever. Could we, with those 6 or 8 photos, is there a way to kind of categorize our buffers?
Yeah.
And then build off of that in a
Yeah.
regulatory context?
Yeah. How do you quantify something in this particular regard?
Yeah, I think some of the more recent variance requests have begged that question more, you know, and so if we had that set up in a framework that allowed for that, I think that would be worthwhile.
It would give us a clearer path and maybe the proposers anticipating whether a variance may be granted and help us in terms of whether a variance maybe should be, and maybe have some compensation potential.
Yeah.
You know, if we get granted a variance, does that trigger some? I don't know that financial is necessarily, you know, kickback or whatever the only option, but an option that doesn't just end there. Obviously, the project goes forward, but is there a way to kind of get something back?
Yeah, I think as staff, as we bring these variance requests to you because of that phrase, no disturb in Rule E, and that's why you see a lot of these requests. And in some ways, and in some cases, you know, when you're looking at, you know, photo B or D in these examples, or C, it's like, how valuable is no disturb, or i.e. preserve, when that's what the existing condition is. And when we do have disturbance, we have restoration requirements associated with that.
Yeah.
So there is kind of like, if you're wondering why sometimes we're just like, yeah, we recommend approval, because then we can use our rules to require establishment of a native seed. And we've also explored in the financial sense, you know, as I think about rule changes, we've discussed, you know, maybe we collect a separate escrow for buffer restoration if, you know, disturbance is approved in a buffer, so that there's an extra incentive to get that restored properly. And I think it could, in a lot of these cases, improve conditions over existing, provided it's done with the correct oversight. And then finding ways to eliminate bringing new variance requests where there's like a road and it's an in-kind replacement.
Or even just temporary, right? If you're gonna.
Or a temporary, yeah.
I mean, what I'm hearing is very, it seems aligned definitely for the ones who've made comments already. It's like, it seems like we need to find ways of making or putting metrics around the buffer, because that whole holding everybody to 75 and a manage A is just not going to be tenable. So how do we build the metrics required to understand function of it meets the needs of wetlands? It's really where, if I'm summarizing at least what I'm hearing, that feels like the right spot to be. We can't really challenge Rule E, change Rule E without having more understanding of the metrics around it.
Or about that relationship.
Yeah. I was just floored by how many publications there were on it. That's great. I had one flag I hadn't read all. One flag to read later. Other questions or comments?
maybe a stupid question, but is there like a buffer that you end up coming across more frequently than others for like, I don't know, this in particular kind of stand out?
Maybe G. If it's not an already developed parcel, it's usually buckthorn. I think C is from, was that from Cottage Place, or it could have been, I remember that there was debris,
Oh, yeah.
Victoria Shores too.
Victoria Shores, yeah.
Boston. Oh, sorry, Mary, go ahead.
Oh, just confirming it was Victoria Shores.
Yeah, and so we had a lengthy discussion, and there was a lot of residential interest. Residents were concerned about, you know, the boardwalk and the impacts to the buffer. And having been there and walked the wetland, I was kind of having trouble like advocating for an opportunity to restore it by disturbing it, because it was, bare soil and buckthorn. So yeah, just wanting to like, these are widths on a page, but they vary greatly in real life. But yeah, I would say on an undeveloped or historically disturbed, I would say G is probably it's a lot of buckthorn.
Sure. And the mode one maybe.
Yeah.
B.
Yeah, B.
There's a seasonal component. We see F
Yeah.
a lot
Yeah.
when cities do their street.
Yeah.
Because they're working on roadways with an offset, and that offset is within.
Those all come in the spring.
Yep, they're all spring permits.
Yeah.
Something that Stephanie said at the beginning of the conversation, I was reflecting. We might want to take some of those board actions and actually create a little package. I think we've talked about it before, either through Stephanie or others on the board. Because we'll also talk about the data, we'll talk about other buffer stuff is another action. I'm starting to like this whole, like, how do we build a Ramsey-Washington little pamphlet? Really being a lot of value.
Yeah, with background and history.
I mean, it's a good suggestion, Stephanie. I know it's come up as I was reflecting on it before. I mean, this was a really good conversation. Great write-up. Any further questions before we jump to the Creek Walk presentation? Are you leading it, Brandon, or
Jessica's going to lead it, but I think Jessica is going to be a new face for you. So Jessica is an engineer at BAR. She's a new face to you, but she's not new for working on projects. And so her expertise lies in lakeshore and creek stabilization and restoration. And most recently, she's done a senior kind of over QA/QC review for the double driveway Fish Creek project. So she's familiar with the creeks. He's been working with Eric and Lindsay and Kyle on setting up this framework, and it ends up being an appropriate topic for tonight as we're talking about data and how we organize information that is being collected. And so I'm going to pass it over to Jessica. She'll walk through what we've been working on and where things are going here on this project.
Great.
Jessica, I don't know if it makes sense for you to share your screen. If you're able to do that. Or...
I will try to do that. Yes.
That would be the easiest.
Okay. Yep. I should be able to do that here. Let's see. So if I do this, are you able to see my screen now?
Yes, it's coming. Yep, there it is.
Okay, great. And now I just have to pull up my note sheet so I can see that at the same time. All right. Well, thank you all for the time here. I'm happy to talk with you a little bit tonight. And this has been a fun project to be working on with your staff here. And let's see, I've just got to get my notes pulled up here. They're not showing up for me. Hang on a second. Sorry about this. Okay, pull this over to the screen here. So just to give you kind of a high level overview, the district staff reviews 6 different creeks annually. And so you can see kind of where those are located throughout the watershed. And I'm guessing all of you are familiar with these urban creeks, urban systems. So the idea here is that we wanted to take these reviews and provide a little more structure so that we can have something that is replicable year after year, and be able to get a good picture of kind of the health of the streams, and then ultimately prioritize sites. Oops, let's see if I can go to the next slide. Let's see, apologies. Here we go. Okay. So the idea being we can standardize those evaluations so that you know, if different staff are going out, we can take a snapshot and be able to see how things look in a single year, but then also over time. And so we came up with a list of standard metrics that could be measured every time that these sites are visited. And then this should, again, give us that idea of how things are changing over time. So moving on to the next slide here. So this is that prioritization worksheet that has several of the metrics that we asked staff to look at. And so these are looking at everything from bank stability. So thinking about, you know, what is the current condition? How steep is the slope? How tall is the slope? What kind of vegetation is there? You know, what is the root depth? That kind of thing. And that all kind of plays into this bank erodibility hazard index. And so that helps us think about how things will behave in the future. So in addition to that, we asked staff to look at kind of what's happening around the stream too. So how close is it to infrastructure? How accessible is it, you know, in terms of, you know, future construction kind of a project? And then we also wanted them to take a look at what's happening in the channel itself. So, you know, where is this located? Is it a sharp bend? Is there debris piled up in the channel? Is it a rocky bottom? Is it a sandy bottom? What's the soil like? So all these things came together with different numbers for different sort of ranges of scores. And then it allows us to assign a score to all these different sites and prioritize them. So the idea is to overlay this with information that is obtained from other work that the district is doing, including annual CIP inspections that are conducted by BAR and district staff. And so overlaying all this information should allow us to come up with a good priority list for the district. Let's see, whoops, move on to the next slide here. And so this just gives you kind of a zoomed in view of what field staff were looking at. And so this is looking at an undercut bank, and it has, pretty dense root structure, rather vertical. It's not terribly high. And so it gives us, again, that kind of snapshot in time, how things look now. So it also allows us to say, you know, it's not just, binary. It's not, eroding or not eroding. It's, how bad is the erosion? What do we think is going to be happening? What can we predict is going to be happening in the future? Let's move on to the next slide here. And so I've got a few snapshots here just so you have a sense of kind of what is high, what is medium, what is low. And this first one is Fish Creek. So this is near that site that Brandon mentioned, where we do have some stabilization planned. But this is something, it's a high bank, a vertical bank, high probability that this will continue to erode moving forward, transporting sediment, excessive sediment into the system that we'd like to try to stabilize. And just for reference, a lower score is a higher priority. So this next one is medium priority, and this is in Coleman Creek, just southeast of Bachman's. And part of this is looking at, I mentioned, not only are we looking at bank health, but what's happening in and around this eroding area. And so this is, of course, near some infrastructure. And so that's another factor in trying to kind of think about prioritizing sites. One thing that is important to remember or think about is that, it would be great to be able to overlap some CIP projects with some stream stabilization projects in terms of infrastructure upgrades. However, if there is, extensive stream erosion, if there's a length of stream that requires different kinds of restoration measures, a contractor who might be hired to, say, replace a culvert could, likely install some stabilization measures, riprap, things like that in the immediate vicinity of a structure. But if we get into actual stream work, we might need a more specialized contractor to do that kind of thing. Let's see, move on to the next slide here. And so here's a low priority site. And so you can see that this one has, a flatter angle, there's more vegetation. There's even a little bit of rock there in the foreground. That's one of the things we asked staff to look for. And this is in Jarvis Creek, north of Ryan Drive, kind of south and west of 694. And so this would rank out as a low priority. Moving into the next steps here. So we're currently taking all this wonderful data that district staff has obtained both in late 2025 and early this year, 2026, and putting those together into maps and prioritizing all these different individual reaches that were evaluated. And so part of that, and you can see in this image that we have sort of two maps of the same site, but it's oops, so hang on a second. Didn't do that. Here we go. A total score and a bank health score. And so those are two different ways of kind of looking at the same area. And the bank health is really dialing it in and zeroing in on, bank health as it is labeled. The total score is zooming out and looking more at what's going on with infrastructure, other potential projects in the area, access, land ownership, and those kinds of things. Also thinking about the risks for future impact. So what, if this fails, what else might be impacted? And so those are the two scores that we will be using sort of together to ultimately come up with priorities for these different locations. So the next step, once that is complete, is to identify stream reaches for prioritization. And so this is the idea being that we want to make good use of public dollars and don't want to do things in sort of this piecemeal way. So we'll be putting specific reaches together so that that there are benefits in doing all those, combining projects into small projects into larger projects that can be done well together. Let's see. So then finally, once we're done kind of identifying some of those reaches, we'll be putting together some feasibility level designs for the ones that rank out with high scores. And so that's kind of the quick snapshot of the work we've been doing so far. Are there any questions? And Brandon, do you want to add on anything there?
No, I think we can open it up for questions, and I'll chime in as questions come up.
Yes, maybe can you overview for the board when they might be, assuming we'll bring back once we've had that kind of prioritization, that mapping done, I'm assuming we bring that back to the board at that point.
Yeah, I think so. It would be I think we would do the mapping, the ranking, and say, okay, these are the highest priority lists or the highest priority areas, and then it would come back as, depending on what that project is, a memo with here's the list, and then the request to authorize start of design for that project. Where we're at right now is Jessica mentioned that there's one of the scoring criteria or factors is the sort of infrastructure component to it. And there's a few locations right now where we're comparing notes between district staff, right? So for example, there's a location, Jarvis Creek, we want to make sure that what we've got captured here and saw in the creek walks is the same thing that other staff are looking at on CIP inspections or inspections of fish barrier, things like that. So in other words, we want to make sure that we're not saying, yeah, this is a low area, but another inspection that's being done is saying, oh, this piece of infrastructure needs a project, and that elevates it. So we're edge matching these different field inspections, if you will. And so those I think are all intended to kind of coalesce here over the summer, and then we should be able to have a
tap for budget this year.
Yeah. Well, at least for some preliminary discussion.
Not like 20, but
We'll also be able to use that data to kind of insert into our implementation table for our watershed management.
Okay, I was going to ask a question about other overlapping metrics. You had mentioned that so there's the inspections of the pipes, the grates. What are the things would overlap with this type of assessment?
Yeah, so maybe the first example would be the CIP inspections that are done annually, right? If there's a picture on the screen here of erosion around a trash rack.
Yeah.
Replacing a trash rack, stabilizing a very localized area and replacing some riprap could be something that could be done by the CIP contractor. So that immediately comes to mind is making sure we don't say, okay, we're seeing this here, let's go and pull this out and try to tackle this under a restoration stabilization project when we've got an annual project, an annual sort of CIP deal that could be maybe a more efficient way of handling.
So if Jessica mentioned runs, that's where you're considering.
Yeah, so you can see on the mapping, these segments are broken up into, you can help me with this, Jessica, 50 or 25 foot segments.
Right.
And
yeah, go ahead.
So what I was thinking is, so let's say we do want to do a CIP with the grades and the surrounding runs are high priority, medium priority, we would wrap that all together as a separate program. CIP.
Yeah, it could be, and that's what this mapping would inform that, right? So, for example, in this case here, let's say that was a localized one. We would look at that and go, okay, let's pull that off. That's not a stream stabilization project. Or we'd look at that and go, yep, that falls right in the middle of this longer reach where there's other things going on. We need to do some work in the stream. Then we would go and say, okay, let's pull this from maybe the CIP list and tackle that as part of a separate project.
In conjunction with that, are you looking at like how a stream bank that's undercutting, if you fix that, does that cause problems elsewhere down the stream? Are you doing any modeling to that effect? Or do you fix a structure that increases or decreases speed? I don't know which you would do. It might do one or the other. Are you kind of wrapping that into how you would segmentize these projects?
Yeah, I think Jessica, maybe you want to talk about the modeling that is done during the design process here.
Sure. Yeah, I can touch on that a little bit here. Yeah, I think that's absolutely something we would consider as we're both prioritizing and then also looking at the design itself. And so we would, as we delve into design, we would be looking at developing likely a HEC-RAS model to look at velocities and make sure that we're sizing things appropriately and using appropriate measures to stabilize the banks. And minimize impacts downstream, because you're right. Sometimes, a classic example is if you put in rock riprap in an area that, previously was, soil vegetated, that makes, it increases the end value. And it decreases the end value. So velocities pick up and it starts looking at other areas to start pulling from the banks. And so, that is something we would want to make sure we're not negatively impacting things downstream.
A question about, and I probably should have paid a little more attention, but just in terms of, as we're building toward prioritization, the range of the data. So how long we've been collecting this? Is it last couple of years? And then seasonality. Are we doing these walks 2-3 times over the course of the growing season, or only in spring or fall? What, just can you say a little bit about that?
Maybe you want to tackle history. Of
Yeah, I
walks,
mean,
yeah.
we've been doing creek walk inspections 25 years, something like that. We were doing every other year, but not to the same.
Yeah, using the
schedule.
framework.
So this is the first time we've used this framework
Yeah.
in whole.
Yeah. So there's a long history of collecting data and noting where there's been active erosion and scour along the creeks. And I think one of the things that one of the benefits of this effort, we didn't have in the slide here, but that checklist, there is examples, photographs of here's what each score, could be a representative example of each score. And so we tried to standardize the data collection process so that if different staff do it, because different staff are busy, if there's turnover, if there's whatever the case may be, you still have that same reference. And now year over year, you can follow that numerical system, try to understand, track how things are changing. So that was one of the outcomes. And then the data collection, the organization was a step forward here, where district GIS staff set up a field data collection form. And so there's points with notes and photos that get GIS or geo-referenced on top of those segments and get joined, and then everything populates. And so the organization kind of setting up that workflow was another big
improvement.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we can always use that, or the field staff could use that historical, because we had photos as well. If they were at a point and they thought, I wonder if this is where it's gotten worse over time, they can see that change.
So I look at the work here, and I like what we're doing for quantification for some of the other projects we've been focusing on, return on investment, just generally in that space. I mentally have a harder time connecting some of this work to return on investment for the public. What would we say to a constituent who's like, why did you fix this run of creeks? What value did it bring you? What would y'all say to that?
Well, we have TMDLs, so that would be our first for the southern part, specifically in Battle Creek and Fish Creek. So that would be a direct benefit for those two creeks.
But like Coleman is here
Yeah.
for a few of things. We do something in Coleman, what would be? Because I think this is the right direction. I'm just trying to put it in a larger context in terms of quality and some other things.
Yeah.
What would you say?
I mean, the ecological health,
Ecological health, okay.
definitely.
Safety.
Water quality,
4 foot,
safety,
okay.
land loss.
Okay, threatening land.
The main failure, the erosion, that's how these streams move, right? And so there can be risk to property adjacent to these locations.
I'm glad that it measured in terms of distance to property. I like that. I was just trying to put a sales pitch together in my head for the work.
Some of it's future risk too. If erosion scour failures occur, there's failures at culvert crossings or blockages in the creek, then there's a risk to flooding. There's a risk for washout scour at roadways. So there's a risk mitigation component to it as well.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing. I think this is the right work to do. I like what it is. I like the comprehension of it, breaking down. I'm trying to think through, in some BMPs related to TP pounds, pounds removed. In this particular instance, it becomes a bit more squishy, and I think it's the right intent in what we're trying to do. The TMDLs make a lot of sense to me. That's measurable. Right. That's what I was just kind of trying to tease out, because I believe at the end of this, we're gonna find there's a pretty large section that we need to address. And I wanna make sure that we can justify.
It's harder to quantify when there's not TMDL kind of components, but,
That's kind of where my gut was going.
but I think we can at least,
We talked about sediments, and we
Yeah.
talked about like if it probably has an impact to other
Yeah.
BMPs in terms of you're
Absolutely.
shipping a bunch of sediment down.
in our lake.
And
wetland,
lakes, but.
Yeah.
And a lot of.
How you quantify all that, yeah.
Right, so it's the right measure. I think what
Mhm.
Jessica's convinced is that there's definitely some problem areas here that we're gonna need to go after, and I'm excited to see what that is, but then going on the flip side of trying to justify it. So,
Mhm.
it's a conflict.
Any questions about the path forward, I guess, on this one?
But when I talk to people, they worry about trees in the creek. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not worried about the trees in the creek. I mean, water goes around trees. But yeah, so but
Yeah, I mean, in some cases though, with the bank stabilization, if you lose a tree,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You lose a
like,
big
if it's
tree, you
down
don't
and then,
wanna,
like, but,
yeah,
I mean, that's.
or you don't wanna lose the tree, yeah. Yeah,
Good job, Jessica.
no, thanks, Jessica.
Yeah, thank you.
Looks
I'll
like you're
stop.
still at work. I would encourage you to go.
Thank you. I might do that. Have a good night, everybody.
Okay. Moving on to item 10C. You, Brandon.
Yeah, this one is the inspection of the Battle Creek Dam outlet. So, Battle Creek Dam takes us all the way back to the watershed district's very first project. This was a project to slow down velocity on Battle Creek, and in addition to a lot of other elements of that project, the construction of McKnight Basin was a critical component of that first project. And in order to form McKnight Basin, there's an embankment, that's the Battle Creek Dam. The dam itself is classified as a Class 1 dam by the Minnesota DNR, or a high hazard dam. It is classified as high hazard because if that embankment were to fail, there is a potential risk for loss of life downstream along Battle Creek. So the watershed district staff go and inspect the outlet, the embankment after large rainfall events. We have an inspection plan, that or emergency response plan, that sets up kind of routine inspection intervals. It summarizes contact information and what that floodplain looks like downstream. So this is a piece of infrastructure that we visit on a regular basis. Because it's a Class 1 dam, the Minnesota DNR also inspect Class 1 dams on a rotating basis, and the DNR inspected this one last summer, I think it was. And they sent their inspection report, and that's included as an attachment to the memo, that said, essentially the dam looked to be in good condition, but they noticed some settlement along the outlet pipe, and they suggested that get in there, take a look at it. And so in response to their inspection, the district hired a contractor to de-water, to allow staff to get in and walk through that outlet. That outlet's about 250 feet long. It goes from east to west. And what was found was that there were a number of defects within the pipe. There were some gaskets that were no longer there, that were allowing soil and sediment to get into the outlet. There were some locations of exposed rebar And so there's defects that require repair. Because of the dam classification, this is an important piece of infrastructure that we need to repair. The inspectors, though, noted that there wasn't anything that indicated that failure of that outlet was imminent. So it wasn't an emergency repair, but it was we can't let this linger. We need to get in and address this now that we've identified it. So the first memo and attachment summarize the inspection of the outlet pipe, and then the second, I guess it's all sort of related in here, but there is a scope summary that lays out the sort of process for designing repairs for that system. The schedule for that design is a little bit extended, that we would start designing that right away with the intent to next for this coming winter, and then give the contractor a longer window to construct those repairs. The reason for that scheduling is because this is a shallow pipe. Usually you'd want to do these repairs when you don't have to worry about water management. And so a lot of times winter construction comes to mind. But because it's a shallow pipe, it's really cold in that pipe, and you have to worry then about keeping the grout warm before it cures. And so winter is not the ideal time here. And so if you can't do it in the winter, then that puts you into the spring, summer, where water control of snowmelt runoff and summer rainfall become a real risk, and the contractor would have to manage. So probably not the ideal time to do that. So then that shifts you into that fall, kind of late summer, early fall time frame, being the ideal time to make those or construct those repairs here. So that's sort of some kind of the background on how we're laying this out. I think our intent would be to bid it in the winter and give the contractor a larger window to mobilize. So if they did decide that they wanted to take on that water control risk, we can have that discussion with that. But that's sort of the overall intent there with the schedule. Maybe I'll just pause and open it up if there's questions on the memo or the scope summary or any of the attachments.
So one off question, there was a photo that shows debris accumulating above the outlet conduit, so it's full of all these tree parts. So who's responsible for keeping that outlet clear of debris?
Yeah, district staff go and remove that, and I think I think they reports that that's one of the worst locations for accumulating debris. As part of this project, the intent would be to redesign that trash rack. If we have a contractor out there to redesign that trash rack to one, make it so that as debris gets hung up, it has less of an impact on flow, but two, make it so that it's easier for staff to remove debris that gets to that location.
I have one comment. There's a lot of data and a lot of summary of inspection results, and I haven't seen this for the first time. It's kind of hard to make sense of some of that. So I really appreciate figure 1 on page 164. That really helped me, and then with the local references, just with a geographic context and extent, one to think.
Yeah, with this one, because of the dam classification, the inspection methodology that was used was the same method that we use when we inspect the tunnels, the Beltline and Walnut Creek tunnel. But yes, there's a lot of data that gets generated with
Well, acronym.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
There's a series of engineers that are kind of backing up and interpreting, so.
Yeah.
I think I had made this comment in preparation for this particular topic. One of the things that I noticed reading through was, generally speaking, there must be some balance in how they report it, because in some instances it says the pipe was found to be in fair condition versus there's some pretty urgent things to fix versus other medium things to fix. So as I look through this, I'm trying to, I believe it's the right thing to make sure that we maintenance these outlet structures. Are very important. We need to improve them for sure. Could you help me understand the general sense of urgency, either via modeling or some other mechanism that says, yeah, we do need to do it in 27, or we do, we can push it to 29, or the sense of urgency, especially given we've had some dry years. It takes a high water event to truly threaten those lives and situations. Just help me with the sense of urgency on why kick it off now.
So the NASCO inspection, National Association of Sewer Service Companies, right? Some acronyms there. Their methodology for those scoring is very prescriptive, and this memo has the very abbreviated summary of that. In the Beltline inspection report, we give the more complete version. And so it, depending on the width of the crack, the length of the crack, the depth of the fracture, that puts it into one of those numerical buckets. And so there's a lot of trying to remove the subjectivity for it. And so some of those ones that have a higher scoring are locations where you get exposed rebar. There's a photo in there of around the catch basins in particular, where there's a lot of exposed rebar. And once you start seeing that within a pipe, that is an indication that you don't want to delay repairs multiple years. But there's some structural integrity there still, right? There's not an indication that the road is going to drop into the pipe. And so we're balancing that, because this is the only outlet from the basin. This is how water gets underneath McKnight Road. So we need to make sure that that continues to flow. So we're trying to balance the necessity, the urgency, without causing alarm. Yeah, I think is where we're trying to find that spot here.
Or it's kind of like what we talked about with the creeks too. You had the bank condition versus the overall picture of what's happening around it. Similar, you have the pipe condition, but then you also have the severity of a problem if we don't.
Yeah.
If there is a failure with the dam, class 1 dam, and the downstream resources.
Yeah, it's the thought process of the risk is, I recall the Battle Creek conversation, the risk was high when we found out through inspection. In this instance, it feels like the risk is higher than low. And I was trying to mentally kind of put it in between, okay, where is it from Beltline? Well, that's what I was thinking in my head. I apologize, Ben.
No, in my mind, I wouldn't want to delay it, because knowing we've got this inspection saying there's exposed rebar and that's a check item that triggers this, is the more liability if it's proven that we knew there was an issue,
Yeah, I do agree with you. I'm just trying to think as we go out and they do their work. My underlying assumption is you'll say there could be phases of this, so we're going to tackle this first because it's the most important piece. But there's a lot of things that need to be fixed associated with it. They're not all created equal. So that's where I was just trying to tease out what is it going to look like when we get the bid and the work itself.
Yeah, as far as what the construction.
Yeah, because I agree that amount of debris around that grade is just a full-time job.
Yeah, Yeah, so there's a couple of things that we need to work through here. The repairs of the pipe, the filling of the cracks, the replacing the penetrations, the concrete that has come off. That we don't anticipate that being phased. We anticipate that's a one mobilization. They're in while they're controlling water, they do all of that work and get out. There's some coordination that will be needed with it's the county road on those catch basins, and we're doing the pipe, but those catch basins also look like they were in rough shape. So we'll be coordinating just to figure out where we had connected. But we anticipate that would all be done in one shot. The replacing of the trash rack would be done at the same time. So we wouldn't propose doing different phases of construction.
This one larger program to fix things.
Yeah, I don't think we wanna try and go in there more than one, once we can get in there.
And mobilization costs being what it is, stuff in the water.
And there's difficult.
Yeah. So the construction part would just be done in one shot. You alluded to the debris and the ongoing maintenance. I mean, that's something that district staff do now, will continue to do. That won't change after construction.
In the pictures, is that really, what is it, 30 years plus of sediment in that particular one, or is that
inside the outlet? At the snapshot of the sediment that had accumulated as of this spring, right? So that is the outlet from the Knife Basin, right? So as water is moving through that pipe, that's picking up that sediment, conveying it out. As it conveys it out, the more comes in, so that what you're seeing there isn't the accumulation of 30 years, it's just what has gotten in there but hasn't gotten washed out yet.
Ben's comment about liability. If we were to delay response, then the basis that we would be formulating a repair and restoration very likely could change. I mean, if you wait a year or two, you got to almost start the whole process over again. So it seems to me that we've initiated the inspection and an assessment of defects, and on the route to thinking about restoration repair type actions. I see no reason to delay. This is sort of rolling forward.
thinking about some of our other concrete structures? We've talked about how long we expect them to last. Do we feel like the design of this, both the dam and the pipe, has met the expected life?
Yeah. So I'm gonna pause here because you gotta think about what the intent was of the original design.
But you can also like follow up later. I'm just kind of curious. We had talked about underwater basins where concrete was poured. We were concerned about where we did coring, and well, we couldn't do it for the timeline that we projected to be. So I was curious.
I might have to follow up on that one afterwards. I mean, here we are sitting.
I feel it's like an educational thing.
Yeah, I mean, typically a 50-year life cycle for projects like this is not unrealistic. And here we are 45 years later. So having a repair, we're not talking about a replacement project. Right. We're talking about a repair, a maintenance project here. And so 45 years after construction, that's not unheard of.
That's great. I just don't have the background to know that. So I appreciate it. Awesome. So this is for information. Do you need an action to go out in a bit?
No, because you'll see, this is just to start the design process, and then during our budgeting process in August-ish.
It'll show up.
Between August, September, we'll be talking about kind of high level cost estimates so that we can build that into our budgeting for next year.
Awesome. Any other questions for Ben? Keep us moving. Yeah, I believe it is your shift.
I don't have a lot in the administrator's report. We already talked about the watersheds updates a little bit and the action log, a couple anniversaries this year and our staff for this month. Some page here. Upcoming meetings, just some reminders about upcoming CAC board meetings, Metro Watersheds, Minnesota Watershed Summer Tour in August this year. So just some things to be aware of.
When do you need us to tell you if we're interested in something?
Registration hasn't been, I think Emily might have sent you an email so she could do hotel reservations.
Quick, I just couldn't.
So if you're interested, she would like to get the hotels at least reserved. Registration hasn't opened up yet for the tour itself. So that should be coming shortly though. So you should be hearing from Emily on that.
So it's August 3rd week or?
The 25th and 26th. Yeah, Detroit Lakes is the location.
I just have one question on the action log. So the wetland topics, I know we just had that wonderful conversation about the buffer.
Yeah.
There's other things in that one action, so I assume we're not removing it for the action up here.
No, I guess I'd be interested in hearing if, you know, like what maybe your next priority would be on that. You know, some of it was related to rules, so that you'll see some of that as Nicole goes through the rule revision process, so the wetland balance is in there.
Okay, that's the one I was thinking.
That's what I figured that was kind of the next. Just blinking right now on what the other topic, I feel like there was one other one. For wetland.
Yeah, I mean, in the conversation earlier, there were a few discussion points that kind of jogged my memory around just the health of it. We talked about balance, we talked about the amount of fluctuation. We talked about do we control for balance, do we control for amount? There's a couple of things that we've talked about over the course of last year.
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't remember what it all piled to, but if you guys had a proposal that'll prepare us for the rule discussion, the planning discussion, a new buffer was one thing out of many.
Yeah, I feel like the other things will come later in the year when Nicole is walking
So
through
let's
that.
not remove it. It'd be nice to think through what other things we were.
Yeah, I'll get I have it in my. I remember I lumped them all together.
Yeah, well, yeah, because it started becoming long, all the different watershed ones. Yeah, that's good. That's my.
All I have then for the admin report.
Awesome.
Good question, the shoreline assessment, that's anticipated later this year. Kind of
No, we're kind of
summer or fall or?
probably fall. And we're thinking about how it'll most likely be an implementation item in our plan. And so how I think presenting to you on kind of what our thoughts are moving forward will be coming in the early fall. And then the actual work itself, you know, moving forward with it would come our future years.
Yeah, I guess I was wondering if it would also coincide or relate to some communication outreach that Lauren is doing with the
lake,
shoreline homeowners,
potentially
property owners.
Yeah, I think there's some melding of information.
Timing might be good.
Yeah, Lauren is planning to come talk to you maybe at the July meeting, although I'm gonna look at our agenda and see. I told her she was she was grateful for that, but I do intend to have her come because I know there's been a lot of good discussion around communications and outreach programs, so and that can be something.
Awesome. We're on to item 12. As typical, I'm just going to go down and call out where I have a question. If y'all have before, just let me know. I do have a question on C. You know, chloride has been a big focus of this board for a while. And I saw that there could have been a brainstorming meeting, May 27th. Is there high level, what was takeaways from that? You don't have to go through a detailed list.
Yes, that meeting was mostly I'm told, to review the initial modeling results. The main outcome of that discussion was that there's further prioritization needed by layering in some additional information, compared status, equity, available monitoring data, sort of criteria. And then district staff are going to be using some of those results to summarize the top chloride contributing parcels, potentially doing some targeted outreach this summer.
Yeah, the modeling information was really interesting to see how the outputs, what it shows, so that we could think through some of the implementation strategies and how we would use that information. And so we have a spreadsheet that between our staff and bar staff are using to compile some of these thoughts, so that as we really formulate the plan, we have some good implementation strategies that we'll bring to you for your information and feedbacks.
Thank you. Next question's on G. Anything before G?
I had a quick thing on D.
Yeah, do.
Hanners Lake, Battle Creek resiliency study. Just kind of there's mention made, get my note up here. There's mention made about the continuity of flow continuous modeling. And I'm just curious if there is thought being given to seasonality and the role of ET, evapotranspiration that occurs over the course of the summer versus fall, spring.
Yes, that's exactly it. For this system, we're doing continuous modeling, so that'll simulate evaporation during the summer months, net flow via groundwater, net contribution via groundwater. It simulates and tracks snowpack during the winter months, and then melt during the spring. The reason we're doing that additional modeling for these lakes is because we're looking at potential benefits for operating these outlet structures during low flow events, possibly, or depending on the outcome of reviewing the Battle Creek monitoring data that was collected last year. And so we want to be able to understand what's happening at varying discharges. And that's important here too, because we're discharging into a creek system, not a tunnel, right? There's downstream impacts are very much going to be a very important part of coming up with the operation plan.
Thanks. That's what I have.
Clarification, where is the Battle Creek Lake Tunnel? That's in E. It says Battle Creek Lake Tunnel. So the minimal activity for what, stormwater model updates?
No, that's the lake. I don't think lakes.
No, it should just be Battle Creek.
Okay.
Tunnel. Yeah. Yes. No, that lake.
Extra lake in there.
So this is the one going from McKnight?
Correct.
Yeah, down to
yes.
My question on G is actually related to Todd's place. Seeing so much beautiful things bloom up and around. Has anyone been out there and check it out? How's it?
Yeah, it's I would say overall good. It's a little sparse, but it's what we would expect. So yeah, the Traverse to Sioux is the landscape contractor over there. They have an irrigation system set up because it's so big. So they set that up. So they're watering. They did send us a list of trees and shrubs that need to be replaced, and then we'll look at. We're hopefully doing. We have a lot of plants left over from waterfalls. Want to take any? They're up for grabs in the multi-purpose room. But whatever is left in the next week or so, we're actually gonna plant out at cottage place, but I think it's looking good. But it will take a little time, so.
Yeah, I know it's a longer term thing. It's been beautiful just watching everything bloom. So I was curious.
Yeah, there's it looks like a few patchy areas that maybe were a little more compacted or something, but yeah.
It's gonna be hot too,
Yeah.
so I'm hard to keep up on the watering.
Yeah.
Just a comment on the plant giveaway at Waterfest. I've seen so many people, so very happy people walking away. So pleased with their plants.
Yeah, good.
Plants in my yard. Yesterday's.
I have a quick comment on K on the water management plan TAC stuff. Is there any way we can see that report if we can't attend, or not the report, but the material presented to the TAC?
Mhm.
You know, I personally can't attend. I'd love it if there's a way to send that to the board. Just
Sure.
more information. I don't know what other people's schedules
Well,
are
and
like.
you will see,
We will eventually.
you'll see it at the July meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was
And
like,
it'll be more complete at that point, but yeah, we can send you whatever we sent.
yeah, I just like reading it. It helps to see the evolution after specifically
Yeah.
TAC conference.
Sure.
Is what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Okay. We're still waiting for the funds. Oh, I think this is my last one. It's on Hall's area, and I don't actually think.
I have a question on N.
Perfect.
So these are the lake level
Mhm.
gauges. Yeah, I know some of them have been temporarily out of commission for an extended period of time. I guess kind of a general question, at what point in time when we have extended outages, do we consider perhaps lower tech options? You know, one that's, I don't know, a little yardstick in the water, whatever it is. I mean, it's not gonna give you an immediate feedback, but at the same time, at least it won't be months without any.
Yeah, I think if our conditions were such that we were concerned about flooding and flood risk, that is something we would have implemented already. But because we've been, at least in this case, thankfully not in that situation, the extended time without that data has been acceptable. But I understand what you're saying. It's a good point.
And it just seems like I don't know. It's like red squirrels. They're we're able to get us on everything, whether or not it's sand or vegetation or
like one thing or another. Yeah. Good comment. Thank you.
And my next one's on NN, or I believe it's NN. All the way up.
The NR report.
BB.
Oh,
BB.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's no NN. My bad. I'm reading a different report. There's just comments about the shoreline property owner water quality perspective surveys, which I think is a really smart thing to do. And I'm excited to see what that is. I just wanted to make a comment on the misinformation or lack of information. I think it was really well stated here in terms of the beginning of the springtime. There's lots of comments I personally receive on, hey, doesn't look good. It means that things are bad. These are weeds. We have to remove them. And then they comment about the algae, and they comment about all these things. And there's a certain life cycle of these bodies of water. And so as we think about how we approach educating the public, helping them feel informed so they're not clearing away things that are beneficial, I'm very interested to see how we go about doing that. So if there's a group that you want to pilot, I have some ideas as you guys look through it, but there's something around in lack of information, people make assumptions. And it's I definitely have seen it with some of the folks I've bumped into where I've had to correct definitely some incorrect assumptions.
Yeah, that would be the intent, and I think you bring some good perspective from your Twin Lake experience.
Yeah, there's a lot to be shown here, and so in some of these instances, be it the water monitoring as brought up earlier, over communicating ends up reducing the likelihood of these poor assumptions.
Yes.
Kind of like So I'm excited about it as well. Oh,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, I think she intends when she comes to talk to you, focusing on that survey, or spending some time. on that, so it's gonna be helpful.
That's it. Any other comments or questions? Okay, item number 13. Any comments generally about next month's meeting? I know summer is a big time for travel, so just ensure you've communicated with Tina if you're out. Just one of my only comments.
One question in two parts. We've often tried to do a site visit.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't know if there's any thought, are we gonna do that July, August?
Yeah, oh, actually, that's a good point. So, well, we had intended to do one this month, but I don't think the project we were gonna do Gus Davis, and they just didn't get moving along as far as we thought they would be right now. Or had planned to be, I guess. But for July, I would like to do a workshop if we could for the implementation table for the watershed management plan.
That was the second part.
So that would be our before the meeting activity next month, if that works in your schedules.
Yeah, it's
then we
the
could do
first
this
or
day.
second of July.
In August,
The first of July.
we could do just David in August, yeah, it should be wrapped up.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Good comments. Good meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Meeting is adjourned.
Seconded.
Oh, we have to.
It was like,
You're done.